Hello, welcome back to the Kingdom Minded Mompreneur podcast. Hey, Becky.
Hey, friend.
You know, we are in a position where there has been so much noise around network marketing, social selling, companies closing their doors, companies changing their compensation plan. And so we've had a lot of you reach out and ask us our opinion and ask what is going on. And so today we're going to talk about, is direct sales dying?
Ooh, I feel like we need to be like dun dun dun, like some sound effects or something. Oh man. I first just want to say, yeah, it is. I feel so sad for all of the women and men. But I would say primarily lately women that have been impacted by what has just happened in the industry as a whole. Like, I feel like anytime a company closes their doors or makes a big change that affects the field, we all kind of mourn and grieve for those people. And probably, I'm sure if you're still in the field, you're probably a little scared and nervous and anxious when we see something like that happen. And so I just wanted to first say, I know Monique and I both have had several conversations behind the scenes about this, but we're sorry. I mean, there's nothing else to say other than I'm really sorry. We are going to address like some things moving forward, that some perspectives and some mindset shifts that you might want to have, and things to implement. But first, we just wanted to take a minute to say we're sorry, because so many of you have built your brand, your livelihood, your team, your relationships, and what you show up and do every day is literally based on this company and the decision they've just made. And I know I can't speak for everyone, but I know I felt like I lost so much of my identity when I changed companies. And even when I decided to focus primarily on speaking and coaching and training, and even then, right? Like, I was not attached to a company. And so I know, like, I don't know, Monique, if you want to share a little of your perspective in regards to that, but I just am really sorry and sad for all the people that's such a loss. You just feel like so much of, especially if you really loved it, you loved the company, you didn't want that change. It's really hard, really hard.
Yeah. Yeah. And, when they announced, and if you are not familiar with what we're talking about, recently, there have been a few companies that have either changed their compensation plan or are going out of business. And so immediately when they announced some of those names, Becky and I thought of people that we have worked alongside or trained their teams or coached. And it's very sad. And so we are so sorry if that is you and something that you are walking through. And so we wanted to share with you today 3 things that we believe you must be doing right now. If you are in the network marketing space, we believe that even still, it is one of the best ways to make income. It is one of the best ways to work from home, to work alongside your family, to have an opportunity where you can work part-time hours and make a full-time income. We still believe today that that
Yes.
opportunity is there. And so sometimes, when you hear some noise, you think that that is going on with everyone. You think like, oh, this is happening to everybody or it's everywhere. And it's really not. Like, when you think about all of the companies that are out there, it is a very, very small percentage that have changed compensation plans or are going out of business or are in a lawsuit for some reason. And because of that, they've had to adjust things. And that's part of, what's gone on, I know for sure with one company, but that does not change your circumstances. And so we're going to give you 3 things. And the very first one is to keep your eyes focused on what God has for you. So obviously, as the name, the Kingdom Minded Mompreneur, we always want to give you a perspective that leads you back to a faith-based biblical perspective on your life, your business. And so if you know that God has called you to your business, and he hasn't told you to do something else, he hasn't told you to stop, he hasn't told you to pivot, keep going.
Yeah. I know. Well, and it's just so I think it's anytime we look through that lens, the perspective kind of grounds us, right? Like it's kind of like, okay, it's not the end of the world, right? Like this is a part of my journey, a part of my story. And I would also go as far to say that, it helps you become the version that is required for what's next, right? For what is going to happen in the future. And so while it can be very scary or frustrating or, just heartbreaking in the moment, I really believe that, right? Like God has, like, He's prepared plans for us, right? That there's a hope and a future. And without whatever you're walking through, those things could not transpire. So for sure, I think anytime I just, in general, like no matter what I'm walking through, I have to remind myself that, okay, you know what? Like my primary focus is getting myself and my girls to heaven. Right. And obviously, like I have to make money. I have to, provide for my family, steward. We're going to talk about that in a minute. I have to, be intentional with my time and diligent and, you know, disciple others. There's so many things, right, that I want to do while I'm here on earth. But ultimately, like that is the goal. And so focusing, like making sure all of my actions point back towards that.
Yeah.
And also recognizing that who knows what's really going on behind the scenes with some of those companies. And like maybe God is protecting you. Like maybe God is removing that from your life
Yeah.
for a very specific reason that you have no idea, right? Like no idea what's really going on or what could have transpired if you had stayed.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I think if you're in that position, like that definitely can be true. But I think if you're in a position where you are in a company and you're thriving and your company is thriving and that you still see so much opportunity, you really have to shut out the noise. Like you really have to, especially on social media, it's so easy to see what somebody else is doing and this person's jumping into this or this person's starting this new shiny thing, like we've seen it all, like the
Yeah.
new shiny thing that everybody seems to be doing, or, MRR, or I mean, we're not saying anything wrong about that, but, there's all kinds of noise and things that,
Yeah.
you have to go back to, but is this what God has called me to do? Or am I just doing this because it's the next shiny thing? Or am I jumping out of something because of fear? And I think with the announcements of some businesses closing or changing their compensation plans, it has brought on fear. And so I think you really have to just have this tunnel vision of I am going to keep moving forward and not allow fear to hold you back.
Yeah.
So, the second thing that we believe you must be doing is we truly believe that you have to be a good steward of your finances.
Yeah.
So, at the end of the day, you are part of a company. You do not own this company. You are not your company. And just like if someone worked for a corporation and that corporation closed their doors or restructured or had mass layoffs and they were without a job, like you are in the exact same position. And so just being, a faithful and good steward, you have to be mindful of, are you being financially responsible? Are you saving? Are you investing? Do you have an emergency fund? Do you have, plans for if something were to happen that you would take care of your finances? And I think that there's a lot in the direct sales network marketing world where there is this messaging where you have to have social proof and you have to buy the new house and the new car and the new bag and all those kinds of things. But what we believe is, are you really setting yourself up for success when you're buying all of these things to have social proof instead of saving, investing, being a good steward of your finances? So, Becky, what are your thoughts on that?
Oh, 100%. I mean, I think I've shared my own testimony before about the house that we previously owned and how we qualified for that house on my income alone. And I was so proud of it. I mean, I was like, so I was happy to, let's talk about, struggling with pride. I mean, I was happy to tell people that it was like, we qualified for this house on my income, and it's so cool and great and amazing that you can do that in the industry. But I also look back on that season and I'm like, we did not steward things well during that transition because, he should not have quit his job. I had, there was a lot more into it that went into it. But my point is, I had kind of essentially trapped myself in a prison of my own creation because I realized at one point that if I wasn't making a certain amount, like we were going to lose our home. Right. And so, and it caused a lot of turmoil, in our marriage. It caused stress on me. I gained a lot of weight. And just in general, I mean, I think it brought a lot of things to a head that needed to come to a head, but also um I don't know honestly what I think, whether it was my own like desire for the next thing or just like pride or what wanting to appear like, oh, I'm the top of the company and I make all this money and blah blah blah. And looking back, I'm like, I really wish I had invested more. I wish I had, I mean, there's other things now that I'm like, man, I wish I had done blank, right? Versus having the shiny things, the brand new car, the Louis Vuitton. Like now I'm like, none of that stuff even matters to me. And I feel like more than anything, what I crave is freedom. And that's why so many people get into this industry anyway, is not for the shiny things. You get into it because you want freedom, maybe freedom from debt, like maybe you're like, someone is marketing whatever company and they're promising, hey, you can make $500. And you're like, oh my goodness, like that would be so great if I could pay off debt, making $500 a month. Right. And so that's why you get into it. And then you look back, 2 or 3 years later down the road and you're kind of looking back and you're like, whoa, what just happened? And it's beautiful and amazing and exciting. But sometimes people kind of fall into this I think like carrot chasing trap of the industry. And instead of focusing on like, what is it, like, what is the reason and purpose that you are doing it? Like, what is your intention? And staying focused on that. And it's not to say we don't love, when a company offers incentive trips and all of these great rewards and incentives and the community and culture is like one where people are doing really cool, incredible things. But I think just kind of keeping ourselves in check and saying, what is really, truly, necessary? And can I continue to live this lifestyle for 6 months or, whatever, if things changed, right? Like, could I keep up this lifestyle if my company went out of business, if my husband lost his job, if, whatever, right? Like asking yourself those hard questions. Can I afford my lifestyle? At least for 6 months, right? So you can kind of give yourself a runway. And I mean, obviously, I am not a financial advisor. I am not going to sit here and give you any financial advice, but I'm just saying, like, learn from my mistakes, okay? Like, learn from me. And I think anyone out there that has a similar story, and I know, Monique, you've coached, I can't tell how many thousands of women, and worked with other people. I'm sure you've heard other top leaders say similar things.
Yeah, I mean, I think the conversation sometimes with top leaders that they will, they would never say out loud is exactly what you're saying. Like they feel trapped. They feel like, okay, I've put myself in this position. We have all of these expenses. I can't leave my company, or I can't make a change, or I can't quit, or I can't, whatever, because they have positioned themselves where their expenses require them to show up and work at a certain level. And so I think you just need to ask yourself, is that wise stewardship? And that goes back to what I was saying earlier about the noise. Like you have to be able to like put these blinders on and really shut out the noise. And so I was thinking of this verse that I read recently, and I don't remember ever reading this before, but Becky and I have been going through the Bible recap. I think we're both behind.
I am
Are
behind,
you behind,
girl.
Becky? Oh
I'm
my.
like, I don't know. I'm almost a week behind. Camp really threw me off, and
Yeah.
I gotta, anyway,
Yeah.
I
I'm a
gotta catch
little,
up.
I want to say I'm like a week behind, but there came a point where I just got a little like, we are still in the Old Testament. And I was like, I just need something different. Anyway, so I think we're like in, I don't even know.
I
But I
can't.
hopped over to
Yeah.
Proverbs. I was like, I
It's
just want to read
like
some.
Isaiah and then
Yes.
Chronicles and yeah, it's a lot of
Yes.
kings. A
Yes.
lot of
Yes. That's exactly where I was. And I was like, I just need a little something different. So I opened up Proverbs and I was just reading through, and there was this, I want to say it's like Proverbs 14. I'll look it up and put it in the show notes. But it was this verse that said, there's a man who appears to be rich, but he is actually poor. And there's a man who appears to be poor, but he is actually rich. And I was like, wow, that is so powerful because that is our society. Like someone might appear, and you, like our audience, you may appear to have all these things and, whatever. But really, if you stopped working, there's not a whole lot there. Or if, there's not a whole lot saved, or there's not a whole lot invested, or leaving a legacy to your children. But then
yeah.
there's somebody who, lives a simple, modest life, pays cash for vehicles, doesn't have debt, all of that. And they invest and they have, wealth that they leave to their children, or they're not stressed financially, or they're not feeling strapped, or all those things. And so I just think it goes back to that stewardship, and it takes discipline. Like it really does. It takes discipline to be able to live that life. And, um, I know I've said this before to you, Becky, just in talking, but like with my husband and I, the conversations we have before we make purchases, like I'm the one that's more prone to be like, I think we should get blank or whatever. And he's like, okay, let's think about this and this and this. And I've always looked back and been like, wow, I'm so grateful. Like I remember when we very first got married, I was like, hey, I found this house. I think we should move and blah, blah, blah. And he was like, no, that neighborhood is about to go down. Like I remember him telling me, like, no, that's going to depreciate. Like that's not a good investment, blah, blah, blah. And here we are, 13 years later, and literally that neighborhood, that house is probably worth nothing. And it was just like, wise stewardship that you look back and you're like, man, I'm so grateful that somebody else was like,
Yes.
no, don't do this or whatever. So if we need to be that voice coming alongside you and saying, like, be a good steward of what God has given you financially and save, you never know when things may happen. Um, Anyway, okay. So moving on, I feel like we could do a
Yeah.
whole episode about
Yes.
that. So the third thing that we really believe that you must do is we truly believe you have to brand yourself. So do you want to talk about that, Becky?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think just in general, I mean, we've already addressed in this conversation how companies, close, change their model, whatever, right? And I think at the end of the day, you have to bet on yourself. And while, yes, we love these companies and so appreciative to, for all the opportunities, the compensation plan, the incentives and things they provide, ultimately, like you are not the decider of the future of that company, and I think when you kind of look at your journey in life, the majority of people don't stay with one company their entire career. Now, a lot will, but not everyone does. And it's not necessarily because they don't want to stay with that company, right? But there are times when doors close or they make a change and you feel forced, or an opportunity arises and you want to make a change or a transition. And so I just want to encourage you to, I think when it comes to marketing yourself, that ultimately the reason someone will join, like you would recruit someone and they would actually sign up and want to build a team with you, is because of you, right? Yes, they might be drawn to the products for the discount, but those people aren't really your builders. Like the people that want the discount, they may, sell a little bit here and there, but those are not your true builders. The people that you're going to recruit and run with and, you're like maybe lifetime customers, lifetime hosts, and, people that you network with, those are going to be people that are drawn to you, not just the company. In fact, in spite of the company, they will still want to do whatever, be a part of whatever you are doing. And I can speak to this because I went from one company to a completely different company, and there were people that still wanted to purchase from me because they trusted me. They trusted my opinion. They trusted that I was, stepping into something that was worthwhile because they had been a part of my journey previously. And while a lot of it was tied to a company, I tried to share so much of, why I was doing what I was doing, not telling people every single aspect of my life, but just in general, helping them understand, the why behind what it is that I do. And when people feel a part of, your story, or they know what's going on behind the scenes, then they want to support you no matter where you go or what you do.
Yeah, and you have to be confident that your unique perspective, your unique voice matters. And so I think it can be easy to hide behind your company, like where you brand yourself as your company instead of really putting yourself out there. But that is what people are attracted to. Like they want to hear your perspective on things, they want to know what you think about something. And when you can show up and be you, people are drawn to that. And it's the right kind of people. Like it's your people. It's the super fans who are going to be your ride or die, people who are there. And in the same way that we were talking about being smart with your finances, you really do have to be smart with how you show up and brand yourself. Because if your company goes out of business and you have been all about like, some people have, it doesn't matter, but anyway, like their name attached to, the
Right.
company and all that kind of stuff. And if that goes away, can you continue to keep moving forward and still have something to offer, still have something of value where you can help people and serve people in another capacity?
Yeah. Yeah. I think just in general, if someone is, just as an example, maybe they're, you know, selling, I don't know, some kind of like health product, right? Either supplements or shakes or a drink or whatever, right? Whatever it is. And their company closes their doors. I think the person who brands themselves only around the specific product and company is going to struggle more than the person who was branding themselves around why they were using the product, right? The problem that it solved. And so if you're like, I'm using this product because I want my blood sugar to stay balanced, or you're using this product because you lost a bunch of weight and it helps manage your cravings, or you're using this product because it makes putting on makeup like easy and, stress free when you're trying to run out the door in the morning, right? So focusing on the why behind you using that product is more important than the name of the product. And I think when you focus on that, your shift will not be as, like stressful, like, oh no, will people still buy from me? Will they still whatever? Because you're still solving the same problem, just maybe at a different company.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it goes back to value. Like, are you offering value to people? Do you show up every day and someone comes to your page and they're like, oh, I know I'm going to learn something. Like right now,
Yes.
there's somebody I'm following on Instagram, Stacy. I'm pretty sure you follow her too.
I'm sure I do.
Anyway, it's like, she's always funny and she's always offering some value. And so are you doing that for people? Like, are you offering value where they're going to feel like they're getting something? There's some benefit, even if it's just humor, but there's some
Yeah.
benefit that they're going to get from coming to your page. So we want to leave you with just encouragement and belief, because if you have been fearful, if you've been like, oh, am I in the wrong industry? Is this, is this still working for me? Like 1000%, the industry is still working. The industry has so much opportunity, social media, social selling. There's so much opportunity out there. And if you put one foot in front of the other and you show up and you're consistent, you absolutely can be successful in your business. And so we just don't want you to give into fear or to quit or to lose steam and momentum in what you're doing, because you still have an amazing opportunity.
Yeah, totally agree. I think one way I love to look at the word fear is to face everything and rise. And while there is a lot of noise in the industry right now, just like Monique said, we just want to encourage you that it's a very small, it might be making a lot of noise in the moment, but it is a small, very sliver of the industry that, has these founders and CEOs and stuff have had to make really hard decisions to make a shift and a pivot or change things or close their doors. And like she mentioned before, sometimes it's for legal reasons. Sometimes it's maybe because they weren't stewarding their finances well enough and can't pay the field, And so I think ultimately you just have to recognize that, be grateful for where you're at. If you really are loving it, you love the products, you love the community, you love your team and everything it stands for, the company as a whole. And if you don't, or the doors have closed on you and you're trying to figure out what's next, just ask, as she mentioned before, just ask God for discernment, because really, truly, there is so much opportunity out there, and it's just going to keep growing because the social selling industry isn't going anywhere.
Yes. Thanks so much for listening to the Kingdom Minded Mompreneur. If you loved what you heard today, could you stop and give us a 5-star rating and review? It helps our visibility on podcasting platforms so others like you can hear more of this message.
Also, if this episode encouraged you, we would love for you to pass it along to your own biz bestie and anyone else who could benefit. Lastly, don't forget that if you want to hang out with us just a little bit more, join us inside the Kingdom Minded Mompreneur community. Click the link in the show notes. Bye for now.